The ABC Sunday Night Movie.
His name is Anton Voytek.
Anton, it's very nice to meet you.
It's my pleasure. I'm involved in a project that I think you'd find enormously exciting.
8 centuries of family heirlooms and treasures.
Donatello, Botticelli, Leda and the Swan. Oh, that's a lost Da Vinci masterpiece. Everything that Nicole called lost or destroyed, each of those paintings was looted, stolen, over a period of centuries.
Mr. Voytek, I have a warrant from the district attorney's office issued for your arrest.
I trusted you, Rollins, and that trust cost me everything I treasure. I assure you, you'll be repaid. In kind.
They checked Rollins into base psychiatric a couple hours ago. They took crosses, wooden stakes off him. Nobody could figure out what he was going to do with them.
This vampire was a prince in what is now called Hungary. The earliest known account is from the 13th century. 700 years? I still have my doubts, but I think it's him. The strength, the intellect, the royal bearing, those eyes. We have one hell of an adversary. Our little game was amusing for a while, but don't pursue this madness further. And I warn you, divest yourself of everyone dear, or I'll drain them drop by drop. No love, bonds, no sanctuary. You'll live isolated until you begin feeding upon each other like rats. Remember my face. I'll never forget yours. Never. So be it. Mr. K. Mother of God.
In 1979, American film and television found itself in the midst of a full-blown vampire renaissance. Audiences were treated to an extraordinary run of the undead, each one attempting, with varying degrees of success, to redefine the vampire myth for a new era. Frank Langella swept across the big screen as a seductive Count Dracula opposite Laurence Olivier in Universal's production of Dracula. Werner Herzog delivered a dreamlike, unsettling reinterpretation of the classic film Nosferatu. George Hamilton gave audiences a comedic twist on the Dracula story in Love at First Bite, which proved enormously successful. NBC Television's weekly mystery adventure series Cliffhangers featured 3 tales each week, the most popular of which was The Curse of Dracula, or Dracula 1979, with Michael Nouri in the starring role. And rounding out the year in November came my favorite horror film of all time, Tobe Hooper's adaptation of Salem's Lot, which terrified my generation. Amid that crowded field of capes, coffins, and questionable late 70s fashion choices, ABC aired another vampire tale, this one more subdued and nearly forgotten today, but one that deserves far more attention than it gets. That film was Vampire, broadcast on Sunday, October 7th, 1979, and intended as the pilot for a weekly supernatural series that ABC ultimately decided not to pursue. Unlike many TV horror films of the era, often written quickly and shot cheaply, Vampire was shaped by some impressive creative forces. The teleplay was written by Michael Kozoll and Stephen Bocho, 2 men who would, within just 2 years, collaborate on Hill Street Blues, one of the most influential dramas in television history. The film was produced by one of the most unlikely studios imaginable, MTM Enterprises, that is, Mary Tyler Moore Enterprises, which was best known at the time for prestige comedies and grounded dramas. Directing was E.W. Swackhammer, a veteran of episodic television whose credits include MASH, Bewitched, 8 is Enough, and Murder, She Wrote, among many others. Fred Karlin, whose film credits included 1973's Westworld, was hired to score the film. Starring in the film were Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning playwright and actor Jason Miller, still best known as Father Damien from The Exorcist, in the role of San Francisco architect and real estate developer John Rollins. Emmy Award-winning actor E.G. Marshall, perhaps best known for his work on 12 Angry Men and The Defenders, a courtroom drama that ran from 1961 to 1965, plays retired police detective Harry Kilcoyne. Emmy Award-winning actress Jessica Walter, best remembered as the psychotic character Evelyn Draper from 1971's play Misty for Me, stars as Nicole DeCamp. Kathryn Harrold, whose credits included Starsky and Hutch, The Rockford Files, and Chicago Hope, and who starred opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1986's Raw Deal, appears as Leslie Rollins. Barrie Youngfellow, mostly remembered for It's a Living, which ran on ABC from 1980 to 1982, plays Andrea Parker. And in the leading role as centuries-old vampire Prince Anton Voytek is Saturn Award-winning actor Richard Lynch, one of Hollywood's great villain specialists, fondly remembered today for his roles in such films as Invasion USA, Little Nikita, and The Sword and Sorcerer, amongst his extensive television credits. Now, since this is a relatively obscure film, I'm going to go ahead and give you a more thorough rundown of the plot than I might otherwise. If you have not seen this film and wish to do so, and you don't want to be spoiled, please skip ahead. The film opens with real estate developers John and Leslie Rollins at the groundbreaking ceremony for St. Sebastian's Catholic Church, part of an extensive renovation project they've planned for San Francisco's neglected Bryant Park area. Also in attendance is retired police detective Harry Kilcoyne, for whom this area has a particular significance that later becomes important to the story. After a Catholic priest blesses a large cross erected on the site, the crowd begins to disperse, with only Harry noticing that the ground where the cross's shadow falls has turned black and is beginning to smoke as if it has somehow been scorched. After everyone has gone and the sun has set, the smoking ground lying in the shadow of the cross breaks open as something digs its way up from beneath the earth. After a moment, the upper half of a man's body emerges, bellowing with rage and pain. In the days following, a number of strange killings take place in the Bryant Park area, reminiscent of a rash of murders in the 1930s and 40s, in which the bodies of the slain were found with their throats torn and the bodies drained of blood. In the meantime, John and Leslie host a party at their house, during which their friend, attorney Nicole DeCamp, introduces them to a new friend of hers, the mysterious and magnetically handsome Anton Voytek, who immediately impresses Leslie by identifying the subject of an old painting her husband had given her as an anniversary present some years ago.
Delacroix was quite some lover of women when he drew it. Her name is Inez. She was a model he shared with Elizabeth Boulanger after she married Cavey.
Inez.
She was positive.
But that's incredible. When we had it researched, they said there was something written and rubbed out under the signature, but all they could make sense of were the impressions of the letters I and Z in the paper fiber.
I was happy I could name the lady for you.
Voytek soon ingratiates himself to both John and Leslie, and hints at a project he thinks would make for a perfect collaboration between them.
Thank you, John, for a delightful evening. And not, I confess, purely accidental.
Oh, how's that?
When Nicole told me about the party, I put off some London business to have a chance to meet you. I'm involved in a project that I think you'd find enormously exciting. Why don't we talk about it? Sometime soon.
Sure.
As Nicole later explains, Voytek wants to enlist their help in recovering his family's lost heritage from the ruins of an ancestral estate buried beneath Bryant Park.
However, before the family perished, 8 centuries of family heirlooms and treasures were smuggled out and shipped here to the Heidecker estate. Anton has shown me renderings of an underground complex, deep stone basements and tunnels where everything was supposedly stored, awaiting the family's arrival.
Included in the lost treasures Voytek hopes to retrieve are numerous rare works of art, smuggled out of Europe just prior to the Second World War.
And that's only a partial list of the buried works.
Donatello, Botticelli, Leda and the Swan, Rollins. That's a lost Da Vinci masterpiece.
And dozens more thought to be lost or destroyed.
The lure of such lost treasures proves irresistible. With John and Leslie on board, Voytek puts up the necessary financing for the excavation, and work soon begins. The underground structures turn out to be unexpectedly complex, presenting numerous challenges to the work. But then, a much more significant problem arises.
Everything we could remember from Nicole's list is accurate. And if those paintings are buried at the Heidecker estate, as Mr. Voytek seems to think...
It's going to knock the art world on its head. But that's not the best part.
Everything listed, everything that Nicole called lost or destroyed, each of those paintings was looted.
What?
Stolen over a period of centuries.
John investigates further and feels that they have no choice except to report their findings to the police.
Mr. Voytek, I have a warrant from the district attorney's office issued for your arrest. Until you can satisfactorily prove ownership of these paintings, you're charged with conspiracy to commit grand theft. I'd like to read you your rights.
If I'm wrong, if the district attorney is wrong, you and Nicole have our deepest apologies.
I trusted you, Rollins, and that trust cost me everything I treasure. I assure you, you'll be repaid. In kind.
Voytek is taken into custody, but as a high-powered attorney, Nicole manages to secure his release just ahead of the rising sun. One of the film's more memorable sequences then follows as Voytek hurries through the streets of San Francisco in order to make it to the safety of his coffin before he's destroyed, though at this point in the film, no one yet suspects his true nature. That night, Voytek pays a call on an unsuspecting Leslie, ostensibly to renew his offer of friendship to both her and John. As you might imagine, of course, he has something altogether different in mind. When Leslie doesn't meet him as scheduled that evening, John hurries home, only to discover that Voytek has followed through on his threat to deprive John of his greatest treasure. Following Leslie's death, John falls into a great depression, moving out of the home he shared with Leslie and telling anyone who will listen to him that Voytek is responsible for her murder.
He killed her and mutilated her, and nothing is being done about it.
John, we've been through this. The cops have been over every inch of him. He never left his apartment that night. He had witnesses, including Nicole.
She's a liar.
Not accepting this, John pays a visit to Voytek's apartment, apparently hoping to find some new kind of evidence that the police have overlooked, only to run into something that no one was looking for. John is caught fleeing the premises and is briefly taken into custody before being released. It's at this point in the film that Harry notices him and begins to keep an eye on him. Knowing what he's seen and already understanding the incredible thing that it must mean, John begins to educate himself on his adversary, ultimately intent on returning to Voytek's premises for a far different reason. But before he can act, he is once again taken into custody. This time, John is confined to a psychiatric ward, where we have another of the film's more memorable sequences. Realizing that his nature has been discovered and determined to finish his vengeance, Voytek decides to pay the helpless John Rollins a visit.
You pig, you filth.
It's time, Rollins. Do you hear it, Rollins? The sound of blood. Beating in your heart.
Before he can finish off Rollins, however, intervention arrives.
Get help.
Not only do you intrude, but you insult as well. And stop waving that piece of junk at me.
Remember my face. I'll never forget yours. Never.
So be it. Mr. K.
Mother of God.
Harry takes John back to his apartment where the two compare notes on Voytek. Harry then reveals that, decades ago, he and a friend and fellow police officer, Maurice Bernier, were investigating the Bryant Park throat killings, when Bernier became convinced that they weren't just looking for a psychopath, but rather an actual vampire. Bernier left the police force sometime after that to become a priest, and later disappeared while Harry was off at war. Meanwhile, John tells Harry that he may have learned something of Voytek's remote past.
The text was by a German named Heidenreich. He described what he called the Golden Vampire. This vampire was a prince in what is now called Hungary. The earliest known account is from the 13th century. 700 years? Inconceivable. I still had my doubts until I read the Heidenreich book. The German's a little rough. The language he uses is dated. But I think it's him. The strength, the intellect, the royal bearing, those eyes. Add to it what is probably limitless wealth, accumulated over the centuries. We have one hell of an adversary.
Seeing what they're up against, John and Harry then agree to join forces in an effort to hunt down and at last destroy Voytek. From here, the movie turns into an old-fashioned monster hunt, as John and Harry use information taken from Nicole, who has basically been acting as Voytek's business aide, to track down all of Voytek's sanctuaries across the city and render them forever useless to him.
This will only take a minute.
It's at this point that John Rawlins unfortunately discovers that Voytek's vengeance against him is not entirely complete.
Take these. If he's in there, don't look at his face. Put the stake square in the center of his chest and give it everything you've got. Are you ready?
Following this segment of the film, John Rawlins now has nothing left to lose, no other ways that Voytek can get to him. But although a widower for a couple of years, Harry still has his friend and neighbor Andrea and her young son to care for. Harry is able to persuade Andrea to send the boy to Arizona to visit his father, getting him out of Voytek's immediate reach and freeing Harry to act. But Andrea herself is another matter.
Hello.
Harry,
Who is this?
do you remember my face?
I'll never forget yours.
Never. In answer to the unasked, yes, Harry, she is with me.
If you
Touch her. Just a stroke or two for the moment. But I am going to touch her, Harry. I promise you that. And she's going to love it. Say goodnight.
Now, John and Harry must not only attempt to find Voytek before the sun sets again, they must also try to rescue Andrea before she suffers Leslie's fate.
Get out! Leave us alone!
Well done. My congratulations. That's close enough. I'll take it now. Well, you're the best in years. Centuries, in fact. Excellence deserves reward. Leave now, and I promise you'll be rid of me forever.
let her go.
She's free to leave.
Anton, no.
Enough. Now get out. Our little game was amusing for a while, but no more.
It ends. Here, now. One way or the other.
The film's final confrontation sequence ends with a brawl between John, Harry, and Voytek, which of course you would expect in this sort of a film. What you may not expect, however, is that they are unable to destroy Voytek. He is able to escape from them off into the night. Now this, of course, is because the film was shot as the proposed pilot for a television series, and you don't really have much of a series if you kill your villain off in the first episode. Since the series ultimately wasn't picked up, however, the film ends on an unresolved note, leaving it with a bit of a unique flavor amongst other television horror films made in the era.
You okay? That's all right. You don't have to say anything. We're safe for tonight, at least. It's not over, Harry. I know that. I know that, son.
Overall, Vampire is a well-made little film, certainly amongst the better television horror movies of the era, and was one of the last films of its type to focus on character-driven drama rather than action and special effects. The script by Kozoll and Bocho, as well as E.W. Swackhammer's direction, keep the film moving along at a good pace, but still provides us with a coherent story and some solid character development. The story itself, admittedly, is a bit formulaic, although it does a nice job of importing the vampire myth into the modern world, and it's not trying to reinvent the genre either, as films like The Lost Boys and Fright Night would later do. So you're given a standard type of vampire story, the sort of thing that you're used to if you grew up in that era, but it does offer a few twists of its own. It's obvious that the film was not made with a particularly high budget, but then it doesn't really need it or suffer from the lack of it, as the story doesn't require elaborate sets or difficult location shoots. Fred Karlin's score is appropriately gothic and actually quite good, never dipping into melodrama, but it falls short of television horror themes like Dark Shadows and The Night Stalker, which people can often recall well after first hearing them. The cast is mostly composed of veteran actors who all treat the material seriously and deliver solid performances. Jason Miller brings a brooding, theatrical quality to the character of John Rollins, pivoting effectively from fear and disbelief to grim determination.
He killed her, don't you see where that puts you? Help me!
On the surface, E.G. Marshall's Harry Kilcoyne brings an affable, grandfatherly character to his role, but also a poise and intelligence that make him believable as a police detective with decades of experience.
Police business. I have a search warrant for Anton Voytek.
Oh, yeah. Let me call the manager.
Where'd you get that search warrant?
Here's my grocery list.
Nice bluff. You must have been quite a cop in your day.
I still am.
The female leads in the movie aren't asked to do a whole lot beyond about the halfway point, but all turn in solid performances. Kathryn Harrold's Leslie Rollins is portrayed as the refined, intellectual equal of her husband in both their personal and professional lives. Voytek's supernatural charms overcome her, but then he takes her off guard, and she doesn't realize what she's dealing with. Evelyn Draper takes a convincing turn from a confident, high-powered San Francisco attorney to a broken, frightened woman when she's confronted by John and Harry in their quest to corner Voytek.
I can't help anyone. Not even myself. He makes me beg and crawl to him on my knees. And I can't help myself.
As for Voytek himself, Richard Lynch turns in a masterful performance, equal parts charm and menace. He's entirely believable as an ancient, cunning, and powerful vampire prince. In fact, Lynch turns in one of my favorite all-time vampire characterizations in this film, and I'm sorry that we never got to see more of this character. Lynch is perhaps most similar in his approach to playing a vampire to Robert Quarry's performances as the urbane and supremely confident Count Yorga. While I've never been able to confirm this from an actual interview with Lynch, there are persistent accounts online that he considered Anton Voytek to be one of his favorite roles. Whether it's true or not, I can't say for sure, but he plays the character with enough relish that I tend to believe it. Now, I did come across one account online from someone who said that he met Lynch at a convention just a few months before the actor died. He had Lynch sign a poster from this film, Vampire, and said that Lynch was actually anxious to talk to him about it, explaining that he enjoyed playing both a romantic lead and a sort of sinister character at the same time. So whether it was actually one of Lynch's favorite roles or not, unfortunately, we can't say, but he plays the character with enough relish that I tend to believe it probably was. Lynch plays Voytek in such a way that it's obvious that the vampire enjoys being what he is. While he has his refinements, including a taste for the fine arts, and moves effortlessly amongst the elite of his day, he clearly derives a malicious pleasure from his perceived superiority to mortal men. If you watch any interviews with Richard Lynch, you'll quickly come to learn that he wasn't in the dramatic arts primarily for either fame or fortune. Being an actor was his life, and it's as evident in this performance as in any other of his numerous on-screen roles.
I think everybody, to some degree, sure, I've enjoyed a certain amount of exposure. You know, I've got a following internationally. It's pleasing. All that is nice. I mean, you know, but that wasn't the motive. The motive was that I loved the work, and it was a challenge how far I could go with it.
Right.
And then to explore the craft of drama, and to get deeper into it, and how real could I make it, and then the lifestyle that came with it, and the friends and the colleagues and the beauty of it became something that was much more valuable to me. Sure.
that wouldn't be really truthfully representative if I said I didn't want a bigger career. Of course I do. If I didn't want the fruits of filmdom, of course I do. But it's not the primary motive.
I see. Not with Richard Lynch, it isn't.
No, it's my life.
Unfortunately, despite strong writing and casting, Vampire never took flight as a series. I've tried to find more information on why this was and how far planning for the proposed series progressed before the network decided not to pursue it, but there is next to nothing available on the production of this film. I tried reaching out to Michael Kozoll, one of the writers, but never received a reply. All of the principal actors in the film have since passed away, with the exception of Kathryn Harrold, who has retired from acting and is now working as a family therapist. Given that she's left the industry behind and doesn't seem to be actively discussing her past work these days, I thought it was best to respect her privacy and not reach out for an interview. However, if Kathryn ever sees this and would like to discuss the film, I would be honored to do so. Since so little is available as to the film's production, we're forced to speculate a bit as to why it was never optioned as a series, but I think we've got enough information to make some pretty good educated guesses. First, given the other vampire-related projects mentioned previously on both the large and small screens in 1979, it's entirely possible that ABC television executives thought that the market was simply oversaturated with vampires at the time. Perhaps if the film had been a ratings blockbuster like The Night Stalker, the network might have taken a chance on a series anyway. The film aired in ABC's coveted Sunday night movie slot, a key indicator that the network had confidence in its potential appeal, so it seems that the ratings most likely were nothing special. Second, Vampire debuted in October of 1979, a month before CBS aired Tobe Hooper's adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot, which went on to become a great ratings success. In light of this, it's possible that ABC executives held off to see how Salem's Lot would fare in the ratings, and then, once it proved successful, and a regular Salem's Lot TV series was being considered, Stephen King's name recognition and David Soul's star power intimidated them into dropping the idea. Third, NBC had recently completed its run of cliffhangers with its popular Curse of Dracula segment. The show featured Dracula in modern Los Angeles, being pursued from week to week by a descendant of Abraham von Helsing. While popular, the segment had not been able to save cliffhangers from cancellation, and ABC executives likely felt that the show had already explored possible storylines for a modern vampire tale, with vampire hunters pursuing a single villain. Even Salem's Lot, which made an enormous impression on audiences at the time, was unable to make the transition to a weekly series format, potentially for the same reason. It had just been done. Fourth, ABC television executives probably remembered the production problems they had run into with its weekly Kolchak the Night Stalker TV series in 1974 and 75. While the series had followed on two strong TV movies, the network never really backed it effectively, assigning it time slots that resulted in lower ratings. The star of the show, Darren McGavin, had also grown dissatisfied with the show's Monster of the Week format, its grueling overnight shooting schedule, and what he considered to be low-quality scripts. The entire experience had probably left ABC executives with the feeling that a weekly horror show was just too risky. Had Vampire gone on to become a series, the producers would have been hard-pressed to have avoided some of the same problems that had plagued Kolchak, and to have kept from following too closely on the heels of the Curse of Dracula. One potential storyline avenue that could have been successful for them would have been if they had featured extensive flashbacks to Voytek's past, similar to the way that Forever Knight wove Nick Knight's vampire backstory into its weekly episodes during the 1990s. In fact, there's a moment in Vampire that teases this very possibility.
May God strike you dead.
Oh, he has, Harry. But that's a story I'm saving for you.
As far as I've been able to determine, Vampire aired only once on television, on ABC in October of 1979, and then quietly vanished. Unlike The Night Stalker or Salem's Lot, it never became a rerun staple or entered heavy syndication. For many viewers, that single broadcast was their only chance to see it. The film did receive an official VHS release through MTM Home Video in 1993. I purchased a copy myself at the time, but to date, this has been the film's only official media release, and most copies that you'll come across online tend to be rather dark and grainy. Unfortunately, also the copy I used for this video. It would be nice to see this film get a restorative overhaul in a DVD release at some point. Shout Factory, take notice. In the final analysis, while it's a solid film with some memorable moments, an especially memorable antagonist, and is well worth a watch for any fan of the genre, Vampire never sufficiently distinguished itself enough from its competitors to either inspire a follow-up series or remain a fixture in the cultural zeitgeist. Many people do remember this movie fondly, however, and it's my hope that retrospectives such as this one will help rescue this worthy little endeavor from its undeserved obscurity.